probably 7 years of development ahead of us, but I'm sure we'll get into this during the podcast here, but our approach is very much iterative, modular, and regular releases. So every year there's one or two major release candidates in that, and we enhance the gameplay, we introduce new gameplay mechanics, and it builds upon itself.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can imagine that the technological, well, it's been, when did you guys launch? Was it late 2021? December?
It's actually, we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary. Our debut to the world, which was a Medium post announcing the vision and releasing the white paper with links to our website, was on January 14th of 2021. So we're just coming up on 2 years.
Fair enough. See how time flies. I'm wondering on, because obviously everyone knows you guys as a flagship of Solana as a blockchain and metaverse. Where did you get into and come across Solana originally? Because they were just coming up to their all-time high when I sort of first heard of you guys. I'm wondering on, because obviously, you know, the amount of work that goes in before getting to that stage. How did that experience happen? How did you decide chain?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it's almost embarrassing at this point, but I was on a bike ride and I heard SBF on a podcast talking about Project Serum, and you know his rationale for being supportive of the Solana ecosystem, and that's where I first came across it. And we were at the time, this was in 2020, and we started to conceptualize Star Atlas in probably May or June of 2020. That's when we were putting together the game development docs, and we were structuring out the white paper. And we were analyzing various layer ones that we could operate on. And again, I think it's worth emphasizing the extent to which we integrate blockchain architecture throughout our game experience. And I talk about this a lot, but you know, this idea of GameFi or blockchain gaming or Web3 gaming, to me, has at least 3 distinct categories of development methodologies. One of those being, you know, the simple integration of NFTs. I say simple, it is, I think it's progress, and it's certainly beneficial for players, for users to experience that true asset ownership and have the transactability of the assets that they own, the in-game assets that they own. But the game development perspective or side of that is really just building a game as you traditionally would in engine and then linking in the assets. The next progression from that, though, is the integration of a crypto native economy. So using a cryptocurrency or a token for the in-game currency, which we do with Atlas, and then you know, slightly more sophisticated as adding the governance structure around this. So using a governance token as well. But in our case, we really leverage the blockchain to its fullest potential by taking game logic out of the engine, building that via on-chain programs on Solana or otherwise smart contracts, and enabling Solana itself to serve as our backend game server to the fullest extent possible. And this is really challenging to do. This is really complicated. It's never been done before. But the potential here and the upside is that it enables this opportunity for third-party development permissionlessly within your ecosystem. So Star Atlas, as much as we have these gaming products, it's very much a platform and an ecosystem as well. And I often analogize it to the way that layer 1 protocols operate, right? Solana or Ethereum. Well, they've developed out these distributed, decentralized computer systems, state machines, right? And their purpose is to build out infrastructure and tooling that other developers can then leverage to build applications, build services, build their own products on top of. And so that's a long way of saying, with the way that we're developing our platform and our infrastructure and the primitives that we're delivering to Solana, we enable a world of creators, of studios, of other developers to start to integrate their services directly into the Star Atlas environment and the Star Atlas economy.
Yeah, that's one aspect, the deep space travel and the where Polis will really come into its own on the individual sort of governance side and building out your own community within a wider community. It's always the aspect that I'm most excited for when you imagine the metaverse in the future and you imagine all of the possibilities that it will bring, I always imagine. I think there's a book that I love and recommend to everyone, called The Sovereign Individual, and it talks about the transformation from the industrial age to the technological age, and it talks about how like violence is going to just go away. Physical violence, like wars, people blowing each other up, and that it's all going to get replaced by like communities fighting communities all online. And I can see it happening because it's just so easy to do everything online. It's like the age-old concept of people who don't understand NFTs, and it's just the progression of art, the digitalization of art. The same people who thought that newspapers couldn't possibly be on a screen 30 years ago are the same people who right now are saying the exact same thing. But it's the progression again. Bitcoin, money, just getting rid of paper. Hopefully not CBDCs, but any sort of move across to that technology. And that's what I'm really excited for, is when you can have like on-chain or online nations. There's another book by that guy Vitalik loves, begins with a B, like bad. So I don't, but it's about like blockchain nations.
Okay.
If someone can think of the name that I'm missing, do post it into the comments. But that's what I'm really excited for, where like groups and individuals can fully just segment themselves away and in their own world. That's what I really think the metaverse is missing, where you can have those portals to individual, like almost nations and cultures.
So The Sovereign Individual is one of my top recommended books for everyone to read. This was written, I think, in the 80s. The original authorship was in the 80s. It might have been the 90s, but pretty incredible how predictive it was, speaking through this transition into the information age, which is, what you were describing. And I think the core premise in my mind is the idea that governments essentially have a monopoly over society through military power, right? They're able to enforce things like taxation, and we don't have an option in paying taxes or not. We have an option of either leaving that geography or staying there because we have some other social benefits. Our families there. It tends to be relatively sticky wherever you're born. Most people tend to spend their lives there, but we're evolving into this age where and Automata, the studio, our studio, is a great example of the ability for people to freely operate, work, and contribute labor from anywhere in the world. Right? We have over 200 people on our team. We operate across 25 countries. We don't care where you live. We don't care where you work from. We think in terms of productivity, right? We don't think in terms of clocking in and clocking out. And it just expands people's opportunity set to be able to freely travel, freely roam, and identify a region that they want to exist in because the benefits there are superior to wherever they lived previously. And what this ultimately is going to lead to, and this to some extent translates into the opportunities in the metaverse, but what this is going to lead to is people seeking out opportunistic domicile wherever the benefits are the greatest for them. That might mean lower taxation, safer area, more friends, or they just want to freely travel around the world.
Weather.
Yeah, better weather. That's a great example, right?
Definitely
And it's okay for them to reside anywhere because digital opportunities will exist. Now that exists with remote companies like ours, but I also genuinely believe that this idea of the interconnected, interoperable metaverse will provide similar labor opportunities, whether that's through gaming or some other form of digital society. So I think the potential benefits here are massive, and we're starting to see competitive nation states, which is kind of an interesting evolution.
That's the part that seems very freeing of the metaverse. I think that it's like every single. You guys probably felt the same after Facebook rebranded. It causes the inevitable. Crypto's always seasonal anyway. It was layer ones, then it was DeFi Summer, layer ones, gaming, and then Facebook rebranded Metaverse. And inevitably, we at VEMP, and I'm sure you guys as well, benefited from that. It's great to get the attention onto the Metaverse, but inevitably it means that it sort of pushes everyone, and everyone starts running before they've walked. And an influx comes into the market of like just rebrand, or hype chasers or cash chasers, because VCs are suddenly paying attention. People are grabbing the money, and then it gives VCs a bad taste because inevitably it's not their fault when they lose money. It's always the sector rather than them just FOMOing in like retail. So yeah, I think inevitably when you do have that seasonality, it means that it's a good thing really, but it still hurts when the higher you get, the further you can fall. And yeah, metaverse and gaming in particular has been hit hard in this current bear market. But that's just, you get the bad examples of tokenomics like Axie that sort of dig it in and then people apply that. But it's needed, flush out the garbage and let the real players build and then develop. And as soon as the sensible protocols who are building and are delivering on the roadmaps they presented and the funding they got, as soon as they start producing the actual quality, then right back there. I always say play and earn, or an NFT based like Call of Duty first person shooter, Fortnite, or FIFA Pro Evo, will just, when the gaming studios, the traditional ones, finally get market share hurt, then they will all rush in, and it'll probably cause the inevitable same thing again. But hopefully by that point they'll start investing and going in a lot more too.
I completely agree with you. First of all, a couple things here. I mean, you kind of touched on this play to earn concept, or play and earn concept. I actually want to get in a little discussion around that, because there's a lot of commentary out there that play to earn is dead, and I just wholeheartedly disagree with that concept. I do think that the premise of playing specifically as a mechanism for earning is dead, but I don't think anybody entering into this space as a creator, as a developer, envisioned creating a product that was just a more complicated and more time-consuming DeFi. It was never the purpose. Like, the purpose is to create fun experiences, but through that activate legitimate economies as well, and that's where the earnings component comes in. But I think we're seeing some mainstream studios start to dip their toes in the water in Web3. We've had conversations with many of them about potential integrations and where their interest lies, and I think fundamentally they're researching right now the potential of the technology. I don't know if you can hear the fire alarm going off, so apologies for that. But
well, it doesn't matter. Hopefully, it's just a test.
We'll run the show anyway. If it starts to get hot in here, I'll let you know. But they're starting to dip their toes in the water, and Solana, we continue to be huge advocates for that protocol, and we're working with the Solana Foundation and their games team specifically. And I can, without sharing any detail, can just assure people that there are a lot of studios that are interested in building on blockchain. They're interested in Solana specifically, and the potential is huge here. So we're still at the front end of this wave.
Yeah, the Solana community. I mean, I always used to wind my team are Solana maxis. So they were attending like the hacker houses before. The problem was I paid for way too many Solana hacker houses, and then they all came back Solana maxis, and then I didn't go to any because I was just at home doing this and developing and managing everything from home. And then they all came back Solana maxis, and then they took me to Breakpoint, was my first Solana conference. I gave it to them like it certainly changed my mind in terms of the ecosystem and the community as well. I didn't realize the maxi is always a bad term, but it's relevant for this. It's passion is the better word for it. The passion behind the gaming community in Solana in particular is certainly there, and it's very, very hard to change that. And I don't think any individual bad actor can do that. You can't. The whole point of blockchain technology is to get rid of those human faults, and that's if a human can have that negative impact, then it's not a blockchain. So I think that there's certainly I'm in agreement on that, as much as my as it pains me to say, because my team are definitely going to be watching this, making me bullish on Solana. But yeah, I think I was super early to buy Solana. I bought Solana for the first time at $7, and it looks like I'll get the chance to buy it back at that price as well. I sold at $240. Amazing. But yeah, before we talk about my Solana escapades, what is I've seen the video that you presented, and it made me extremely bullish. But apart from the immediate demo and sort of the videos online, any short-term roadmap based alpha for us?
I mean, let's just talk about 2023, because it is an extended roadmap, but we have a couple of very exciting releases coming up this year. So what was described in that roadmap during the keynote presentation was the 8-year plan, the 8-year strategy. And what we announced was this concept of seasonal releases, starting with preseason. I'm referring to our Unreal Engine client right now. Each one of these seasons will roll out new gameplay mechanics, as I said, and kind of enhance the player experience, and also various career specializations. So if you're a fighter versus a racer versus a freighter versus a mining ship, all of these will roll out in these new seasons with that content unlocked. Currently, we're operating in this pre-season concept, which is a showroom environment. The purpose there was yeah, sorry. Sorry about can't control the fire alarms. But the purpose there really was for us to develop out, refine our content production pipelines. So kind of all of the base layer foundational technology that allows us to develop this full vision of Star Atlas in time. And it's comprehensive, and quite literally every pixel that you're viewing within Star Atlas is something that was custom designed, custom fabricated by us. The showroom enables players to enter the environment, view their assets. That was step one. Step two was introducing some of the flight mechanics. So we have one ship that's enabled, actually several ships right now that are enabled, but one ship that is able to participate in these 2 time trial race courses. We have global leaderboards. Have seen a ton of content actually out there from people that are streaming themselves participating in these races. And then there's also this dogfighting arena out in space, and you're able to compete against AI. All of this is really with the purpose of, again, unlocking the feature set, but giving people an opportunity to test out their skills, refine their skills, learn the key configs, and await what's to come. But we do have 2 minor releases, so 2.1 and 2.2 coming, that will enhance the multiplayer experience. We'll see the addition of things like the Star Atlas Marketplace, in-game ground racing vehicles, and dedicated instances hosted by us. Right now, we do have multiplayer enabled, although it's admittedly pretty buggy. We knew that rolling it out, but we wanted to enable the feature anyway. And all of the instances are hosted peer-to-peer. So it's some other player that is essentially spinning up an instance, and then you're connecting directly to them. But what we're working through right now is the multiple concurrent user server hosting, and hosting our own dedicated instances that other players can connect to. So those are some of the kind of key immediate features that are coming out in the next couple of months. We talked actually just at Breakpoint about the R3 and R4 release, which would see this continuous expansion of the showroom through time. And I guess I'm not quite ready to officially announce any pivot to that strategy, but through the beginning of the year, we've been discussing heavily what we think could actually be a more enjoyable, replayable, and repeatable experience for players. So I'm trying to think, what I'd be comfortable with sharing here. But I guess think more in terms of PvP arena and instances, as opposed to continuous expansion of the showroom. So that's kind of the near term. And then I'll just mention in 2024, our objective and roadmap release is still very much projected for the release of combat racing. So the ability to compete in these races, kind of a pod racing meets Mario Kart, except hyper realistic and in Unreal Engine. So that's on the UE side. We have a mobile release that we're anticipating sometime in the first half of this year as well. And then on the possibly one of the more anticipated releases is our browser-based game. So top-down, real-time strategy, isometric view, territory control game, and it's all three factions competing for claiming territory in a single instance, PvP and PvE arena. We're building this in Play Canvas, and all of the assets are 3D using WebGL. Very beautiful game design and beautiful assets. And the initial release of this is going to unlock the ability to go mine resources, refine those resources, contribute those to the construction of star bases. This will open up warp lanes to new territories, and really the basic concept is that all three factions in a persistent environment will be competing to gain control of as much territory as possible. All three factions competing with one another. But what's really cool about the browser-based game is this also becomes our test bed for many of the on-chain mechanics that I was referring to. So in our case, for example, there's 6 programs that we currently have slated for release. That includes things like your player profile and your character progression. That is stored as on-chain data. The inventory management system, the resource extraction system, all of the crafting and refining, as well as the combat systems and movement around the map. So all of those are actually on-chain programs that are operating or enabling the player to operate within the environment. And the, I guess, primary benefit here is that this is where we're really going to unlock the next stage of the Star Atlas economy as well. So transitioning from that faction fleet program that we have online right now, more into Sage and rewarding players based on skill and time spent in game.
Are you going to have any more acronyms? I can't remember what the one was that you had. It was something to do with gold, I think, that you presented at the. It was like 5. It was like a 5-letter acronym, but I can't remember it. So maybe it didn't work like you thought it would.
Sage. Sage is the browser-based game. It's Star Atlas Golden Era. There will be many more acronyms to come from us, I'm sure.
Fair enough. I think see someone was asking where do you see it in 5 years? Maybe a mobile version. It's coming this year. 5 years, nothing. There we go. But longer term, I mean, you did mention at the beginning when I was saying about you mentioned going all the way to 2029. I mean, what does that far depths of space look like?
Well, I mean, so hard to say 5 years out, but certainly by that point we'll have key environments. So the central space stations are kind of an extension of the environments that we're building, and I think of these central space stations as being more of the social hubs. This is your town hall in most MMOs, or your home city in most MMOs, and I'm trying to think through, when specifically we'll get those into the development pipeline. We're expecting 2 to 3 years probably to have those environments online. It depends on how we reprioritize the other experiences that we're developing and releasing. But for me, I'm motivated to release those because they unlock a lot of potential outside of gameplay. Again, the social experiences, the ability to hang out with other players, but also the commercial applications and brand integrations, advertising opportunities. You can kind of think of this as a very high quality sandbox, for example, and we've seen the success that Sandbox has had in bringing in traditional businesses into their virtual world. So that's kind of on the horizon, but of course, unlocking the other space exploration components are a big part of this. Expanding outside of these smaller instances and dedicated experiences like I was referring to with the PvP arena and moving into true free flight, true space exploration, unlocking a lot of the career paths like data runner or the bounty hunter ships. These different careers that players will want to engage in. So, and then I'd say, naturally having the mission completion as a part of this as well. So, go to a mission giver. They instruct you to go to some distant planet or some distant area in space, complete a task, and return and get rewarded. Get rewarded with your XP. Get rewarded with your player growth and skill tree progression, and then of course having the economy activated there as well.
You mentioned in regards to brands, are you working with like not necessarily Oculus in particular, but you're working with any like VR integrations or anybody like that? Is that a long-term plan? I guess that'd be more. I remember my first VR game. I had one of those where like you stick your phone into like the goggles and then put it on. I don't know what that was, but yeah, you working on anything, whether it is like a mobile or browser based?
The mobile concept is initially it is a companion app. It's complementary to the activity that you'll engage in Star Atlas. It's not a replication of all of the same gameplay mechanics. It is a dedicated mechanic. Again, not really prepared to reveal anything on it just yet, as we're still in the development process there. But presently, it is a complementary app. But we do see potential to expand Sage, the browser-based gameplay, to mobile, to tablet, and then continuously enhance on the mobile side. You mentioned VR. We it wasn't really in the immediate roadmap, but one of our gameplay engineers has been experimenting with it. We actually have some content that's coming out this weekend that we'll be sharing of the VR experience. Caveat emptor, this is purely experimental, and it was something that this gameplay engineer Brad Warren was really interested in himself, and so kind of on his own time he's been playing around with that in our Unreal Engine environment.
That's what we like to hear. Give alpha. Yeah, that's what we want. Yeah, I mean, I'm getting much more excited about, as well as VR, also AI. And I think the Chat GPT has really helped sort of make it more mainstream. I think I mentioned this on a previous show, maybe, but when I was, typing in random stuff to that, just literally anything, I actually got stuck with. It's like one of those things. As soon as you have like a whole, you can ask anything, and as soon as you can ask anything, you have no idea what to ask. So I was just talking. I wrote like write a action movie script starring Liam Neeson with a tagline, and it just like wrote it all out. And I thought, Jesus, and that got me really interested in automating as much of like our business and VEMP. Do you like the rebranding? Which we made it very spacey, I guess. We changed it up.
I love it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's I want to try and automate as much as possible, and whether that is, for example, like ongoing revenue streams through arbitrage, because VEMP is like we got VEMP Studios, which is the name of the token now, and then that comes under like VEMP Ventures from our staking pools, and then we've also got like VEMP Trading, because my background was as a derivatives trader, and so I want to try and like automate like an underlying passive, like constantly flowing stream and try and automate as many tasks as possible, because I think there's such an opportunity to take human emotion out of as many decisions as possible. Some people seem to be very afraid of that, but I certainly think it is a very, very good thing, because like humans are like, we can be awful. And there's a lot of tasks that we just fixate on or we put off, which can be automated. So this chat GPT thing just got me literally thinking of all of the different possibilities. And in turn, it's a very like dystopian. I went to see, tell you what, this complete curveball here, and you'll probably have no idea what I'm talking about. I don't know if they have it in the States, right? But I went to this concert called ABBA Voyage. My mum invited me before anyone in the comments says, "Why are you going to ABBA reunion?" It wasn't a reunion. It wasn't a like parody band either. It was an Unreal Engine hologram performance, and the hologram was like a bit dodgy, probably because I was in like the corner, so I could like see the two-dimensional aspect. It was probably a lot better facing on, but on the screen they had the full like Unreal Engine graphics, and I thought, Christ, it's literally like, I guess when they were moving, you could tell, but the quality that you are able to produce now, it's like some of those videos going around like deep fake Donald Trump or deep fake Morgan Freeman I saw as well. It did make me think like, Jesus, things are going way too quickly. Slow down, because like you could literally put anything onto to anyone now, especially Unreal Engine. That is insane.
Yeah, there's some technology that I'm I'd say incredibly optimistic about. So yeah, AR, VR, which we touched on a little bit, kind of XR, categorically extended reality, is one of those. I'm also super excited about haptic feedback. So this is physical sensory feedback devices. So for example, you can be playing a video game and you could have a vest on and you could maybe feel a shock or a vibration if you were to get shot in a first person shooter, something like that. Um, but this makes the gameplay experience that much more tactile, that much more immersive, genuinely feeling like you're there. Personally, I love racing sims as well. So, leveraging some combination of this technology with motion simulation as well. I don't know how approachable or accessible this will be to mainstream in the near term, but I think this is, we're seeing progression in all of this. You touched on the AI side, and it's probably fairly well known. AI is integrated quite heavily into gaming experiences, particularly when you're interacting with non-playable characters, NPCs within the game, where there's, I'd say, at least two paths to this that are really compelling to me. One is enabling human-like interaction with these NPCs. So not going through and selecting from a menu of options to respond to an NPC, but actually being able to hold a conversation with one of these non-playable characters, these AI-driven characters in game. But the other component of this is that's kind of particularly during gameplay. But the other component of this, and again, I don't necessarily want to go full dystopian future here, and I don't know to what extent we get disconnected completely from reality, but the idea of a digital companion in the metaverse, in game, this can serve to some extent as a digital assistant to you, but almost as though an individual is having a relationship with the machine, but it gets to know you quite well. And when you think about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and the progression that we're seeing there through programs like ChatGPT, I genuinely believe that people are going to start to form some level of relationship with their digital counterpart. And I would reference the movie. I think it was Her was the movie where this guy like falls in love with the operating system on his computer. This was, I don't, 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, something like that. But I could just see us progressing to the state where people are having meaningful interactions and relationships with this digital AI.
Trust me, dystopian. Get as dystopian as you like. I absolutely love it. There's no shortage of like conspiracy and also imaginations of the future. I love a good rant. Usually, it turns into anyway. But I 100% agree. I think that there is so much that like including in the metaverse. I mean, people don't talk about it like a lot, but as in like humans, again, like I was saying about how sort of don't like automate as many tasks as possible. Like humans are just like proper degens, just very Freudian in their nature, seeking dopamine, just seeking like any sort of stimulation. And that's going to produce some very strange, weird stuff when when people can do whatever they want in virtual reality, build whatever they want, and just it's going to be very, very odd in the future, I think, if there's like public metaverses where anyone can go anywhere and do anything. Because people are strange, and people's idea of their building their own reality, because essentially this is, where it's going to end up. God, imagine like just walking into someone's random like idea of heaven or hell. Like it could be very odd. But I can certainly see, I mean, if you have how are human relationships built? I mean, there's a certain aspect of like arguable about like biological pheromones, let's say. But I mean, I've met most of my employees twice, some of them once, and only for the first time in December. And some of them I've been working with for ages. So it can't be all pheromones because we don't smell each other through the screen yet. I'm sure that'll come as well, but hopefully not. So there's definitely something to be said. And anyone who argues against that, I mean, is just misinformed or just naive, in my opinion. So 100% believe it. There you go. See, SS4 verse. See, definitely read through the lines there.
I mean, that's probably going to happen, but I mean, what was it? Second Life, that it had digital strip clubs, and Second Life came out in 2006, and it's like one of the first things that people invent upon, right? Sex sells, and like porn was one of the first applications of the internet and helped rise the popularity of the internet
And
itself.
VR.
So yeah. The other thing that you did touch on, though, was this dopamine response, and just thinking again about future technology, the idea of brain-connected interfaces, BCIs, and so like Elon Musk is doing this with Neuralink, right, with the intention of providing mobility to people that may have had traumatic experience, lost control of limbs, paralyzed. Can also potentially restore vision fully, even restore vision for people that were born blind. I mean, this is pretty incredible. But I also watched an interview with Gabe Newell, who was the creator or founder of Valve, and this was like Half-Life and Steam, and he was talking about the potential for using a mobile application to quite literally control your mental state, your mental health, your emotional state. So if you're feeling depressed, using your mobile phone and cranking up a dial and releasing more serotonin, or exactly, just like being able to literally crank up your happiness level and control on the electrochemical level your state of being. And I think all of these things intersect at some point. You're using the haptic feedback. Maybe you're in VR, you're in a metaverse, you have the dial turned on with BCI, and again, I think this all also kind of leads to cybernetics. Neuralink itself is a form of cybernetic. So pretty wild stuff on the horizon. I think it's going to arrive sooner than we all think it will, especially with the improvements that we've seen in AI and the innovation, creativity that we're going to see as a result of artificial intelligence.
Tell you what, it's going to be certainly very. It's going to be like a comic book, because I bet you anything there's going to be someone like Elon Musk who like sticks like half his brain and makes it like half robot, half man, and then goes on like some sort of like take over the world rampage, just super intelligent, like cybernetic being, just destroying everything in their path. Because inevitably, like most new technologies, most of them end up used first by some sort of military application, or like spy or like surveillance. So inevitably, they'll end up with military or rich. That's the order of technology landing, which usually both of them correlate. So there's definitely going to be some weird stuff just looking out the window, and just some robot bloke is just beating up another, flying around like a movie Hancock, I'm imagining, where they're just beating each other up in the middle of the street and just crashing into like skyscrapers. Anyone watching, please do put some questions in the comments. I can see a few already, but just a reminder whilst we're here. I'm not sure if I've is there anything that we haven't touched on? Well, any more alpha that can be given, or anything maybe in regards to like gaming in general? As I said, with our rebrand, we are very much trying to no longer bring. Well, I think one of the main problems which we mentioned about, all of the hype came into gaming in metaverse, but all of the players that like short term came in were coming in because they either wanted to earn free money, or they weren't gamers, they were crypto natives playing games to see what the protocol was about, and then they sort of left a big chasm, and then we saw an inevitable drop. So I guess, what can crypto do to get that mass adoption, and where do you see the future outside of metaverse, but more gaming specific?
Well, so I touched on this a little bit, when discussing the controversy around play to earn, but I also broadly categorize player cohorts across 3 different groups, and you touched on one of those. This is where we saw some more immediate adoption. That's in the crypto trader, the crypto native, or the speculator, people who understand how to operate with this technology, already have a web wallet installed, or already using MetaMask, or already using Phantom, or understand hardware wallets, generally understand the tech, and they see financial opportunity in participating in the technology. So that's one group that has been a participant across all Web3 games. Star Atlas has also benefited from that user group. There is the other group that I would say is predominantly also financially motivated. This is the sector that is like interested in play to earn, the ability to extract value, extract capital out of these gaming experiences. By and large, I think that this group largely comes from emerging markets or developing countries. Axie Infinity being a great example of this, by the way. With the adoption that they experienced in the Philippines, really led up by Gabby with Yield Guild Games, and people that were legitimately able to earn higher income and create a higher standard of living for themselves by participating in Axie versus working a job locally. So they had digital work available to them, and ultimately it wasn't sustainable under the pre-existing model that Axie had rolled out at the time. But that opportunity still very much exists. In terms of how do we get to mass adoption, it's one, catering to that group, because we're talking about billions of people from around the world that could be potentially interested in operating in a gaming experience like Star Atlas, but that needs to be offset by a consumer group as well. And I actually categorize the consumer group as more of the traditional gamer. Now, these are individuals that are most interested in the experience itself. Is it engaging? Do I want to spend time doing this? Am I having a good time? Am I getting that dopamine release that you referred to? That's very important for them. Their digital identity, they kind of immerse themselves in their digital identity as well in the games that they're playing. But I say they're more of the consumer group because I think largely this, particularly in the AAA space, these individuals will be willing to spend money for a better experience. That might be because it's more entertaining, or because there's some convenience that's afforded to them by spending money. And so, or because they get something that's novel and unique, skin packs, or the seasonal content, for example, they might be interested in actually purchasing. Now, to the extent that we're able to curate an economy that balances the people that are mostly interested in extracting value with the people that are willing to consume and contribute value, then we can actually realize this idea of a sustainable economy across Star Atlas. And what that implies is that the whole idea of an emission curve, of an inflation curve, of distributing digital currency as a way of compensating people for the game, well, that cannot be the isolated method of rewarding people. Um, but it's very feasible that somebody that has in our case, a large fleet of ships, for example, they can't perform all of the functions that they need to maximize the potential income off of that fleet. But what they can do is actually employ someone else to operate a fleet for them, or operate a mining operation, or maybe they just don't want to be the one that's sitting in the starbase doing all of the refining and crafting of their materials. And so they're willing to actually share in the income potential. And this is exactly how businesses operate, right? Virtually no company can operate, large scale organization can operate with a single individual. You need massive teams of people. And so you have capital providers that are purchasing the assets and engaged in gameplay and paying other people to assist them with their operation. And in that dynamic, it's less about, are we distributing Atlas, and is that the way that people are making money, and can that be botted, can that be automated? And it's more about the exchange of value player to player. And that's, again, where we've reached this equilibrium of economic stability.
Fair enough. You might have just heard. Seems to be. I heard like a fence go down. There seems to be some sort of storm. Suddenly, see, typical. It's gone into a storm where I am. So if I cut out for any reason, it means that a tree's taken down my internet or something like that. See, fire alarm storms, we're cursed. I was wondering, right? So in regards to like economies, I mean, it's a two-part question, I guess. Decentralization and economies, because one of the main reasons behind Axie's downfall was its economy, and the reason its economy was so inflationary was due to its popularity. Is there a way? I mean, maybe there's a level, for example, that let's say Clash of Clans, they've maintained a certain level of popularity where really demand for let's say gems or whatever they sell. I haven't played for ages, but is there a level where you can step away from tampering with the economy, or are you ever able to have a truly decentralized game? Because surely you cannot just have a constant economy. I guess the players could vote for it, but I guess, yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Because, the more people play, if there is that aspect, then the more emissions come out, and you could end up with popularity becoming the downfall. So be interested to know your thoughts.
Well, I guess as a point of clarification, we don't necessarily think of exponential emissions as a result of user growth. It's a confined pool of resources that will be distributed over a fixed period of time. And so it's more people competing for the same finite pool of resources, which means, if your sole motivation is how much can I extract from the game, the more people that come in, the more competitive it becomes, and the less that an individual is able to earn on a nominal basis on whatever that specific unit of currency is, in our case Atlas. But again, that's just from the rewards emission pool. It's also possible for them to identify an opportunity to provide some service to some other player who, again, is willing to actually pay for them to perform that service. Pay somebody to sit in the space station and refine resources for you, because if you're a savvy operator, you understand where your margins are. You're probably analyzing what commodity markets in game look like, and so you're able to produce resources leveraging this labor source and actually generate net income for yourself. Not everybody wants to operate a game as if they're operating a business. Again, a lot of people just want to come in and have fun, and that's the core of our experience, is first and foremost building that entertainment product that people just want to come in and engage and play. And maybe they don't care if they make anything, and they're happy to spend $10 a month or $20 a month. But again, that's the offset, is, do you have a consumer group that's willing to spend capital to engage in an entertainment experience? And to the extent that you're able to successfully do that, then you have a mechanism for transferring value between the extractors and the consumers. What's unique about at least our case, and I think probably the evolution of Web3 gaming, is that we're not sitting in the middle saying, all of this money that a player is willing to pay for convenience goes directly to us as a studio. It is actually transferred directly peer to peer. Now, what we've introduced is a mechanism for capturing some of that value through a system of taxation. This is essential for us to continue to grow, to continue to develop. Like, as a studio, obviously we have to make money and spend money to be able to produce the end product. But
crazy how little people understand that in crypto. As is not as a crypto community, just one of my common complaints is that crypto, unlike any other business or like even finance or stock, like crypto is the only one where like you have to do it for free. But
that it's this pendulum swing, right? Like one extreme to another. You have traditional world with middlemen and people extracting value from you left and right, and then there's this philosophy of crypto, and people think that everything should be eliminate all of the middlemen and eliminate. You can't eliminate the creators without also identifying a method of compensating that person or that organization to be able to produce the thing that you want, right? So it's like finding a balance and striking a balance between all of that, and not being overly extractive of the user base as well, or the player base in the case of games. But you had referenced Clash of Clans, and this is kind of a classic example of the of a closed economy and of monetary value transferring directly to a single entity. I don't specifically know how Clash of Clans works, but I assume that you're not able to buy gems and then turn around and sell them to another player, right? Or you're not able to go out and harvest gems and sell those to another player, whereas we fully activate that type of peer-to-peer transaction capability. And so if you're in Clash of Clans, free to play, from my understanding, if you want to expedite some process, then you can pay real money to the producer of that game in order for you to have a more enjoyable experience, right? You can do either more things, or you can do certain things faster. You can be a little more competitive, and that's the free to play model. That's how it works in general. You can get in and have some fun, but for the people that are really addicted to it and want to have maybe more fun, they inject their own money into it. And so again, I'm just drawing distinction. I believe people will do that in Star Atlas as well, but the money that they inject into that economy doesn't necessarily go to Automata. It goes to whomever they're paying for the convenience service that is being provided.
It's definitely sad that I'm way more interested in like the economy and finance part of games than I am of thinking. I'm always thinking about the like the description of you had of like effectively almost being layer one, in the fact that I like to think of everything in the way of how can it be infrastructure for people to build on top of it, because I think that is the one thing that separates protocols or companies or anything, is how can people innovate on or around it. That's what defines like such a key business. When people, it's like Curve as a protocol. Curve spawned Convex, Yearn, Pickle Finance. All of those are like derivatives that built on top of Curve, and gaming can be the same. And we saw it somewhat with Axiom YGG. That was like the first iteration in my eyes. And then more guilds came up, like Merit Circle and Good Guild Games. I always get confused with GGG. Anyway, so that's sort of the gaming evolution in my eyes. And obviously it's, had a bit of a sputtering is that even a word? Start. But it's certainly happening. But I certainly agree that that's the part that I am constantly thinking about, is the way that people can extract and pass on value. And I mean, I love working out problems or taking advantage of like opportunities by seeing, for example, let's say that you're mining a certain material and you got one up on someone somehow, that you knew exactly where there was like a source, and therefore you use that to your advantage within the game and manage to pass that value on, which is something you can't do, as you mentioned, in like let's say, gems of Clash of Clans, there's no gem mine. The gem mine is the entity behind Clash of Clans selling the gems. But if I could mine those gems somewhere and I could sell them as a player on to other players, then that opens up that level of infrastructure where you can, build businesses around businesses, protocols around protocols. So that's certainly what I'm looking forward to. We've had one question which is just related to Sage's release. Obviously, markets being up and down, and I always tell my community and also my team, however much you think something's going to cost and however long you think it's going to be completed in, double it, and that's the realistic timeline. But even then, when roadmap or when. But we are getting a question here on Sage.
Yeah, I mean, we've taken a step back from providing any definitive dates on releases. It's it just hasn't panned out well in the past. We have our expectations, we have our target dates, we have our internal objectives on releases, and if we miss those, it benefits us. It does not benefit us at all to pre-announce a date. So I guess my comment on Sage is we're still looking at, I'm going to be vague here, but we're still looking at Q1. One of the internal ideological changes that I'm kind of working through with the rest of our leadership and management teams is understanding how we can release more iteratively and yet also have still fun, playable experiences. The reality of what is effectively a crowdfunding of a product like we've done with Star Atlas, not taking outside capital and releasing assets into the world and generating revenue and building a team and then building the product as a result of that, is that there's immediate accountability and immediate demand for the thing that we've outlined for people, for this vision. Right. And I think we've done a good job, and we've tried to proactively communicate that this is a long-term vision. This is very complicated stuff. It's all bleeding edge technology. There is no playbook for how we build what we build. We are laying the foundation today for the way that people will build products like ours in the future. And we're building a lot of the infrastructure along the way. But with that being said, the struggle is in trying to identify how comprehensive does the product need to be to actually be fun and be sticky, have retention for users. And so I'm saying all of that only to outline that we're really analyzing right now, how can we further fragment feature releases so that we can have the fun experiences, but it doesn't take 6 months or a year because it has 8 features, but it actually has a single feature that we can gamify that's still fun, that keeps people active in the game. And then we can continuously build upon that, which has been our approach since inception. But the point is smaller building blocks that still captivate interest, as opposed to a bigger block. Dominic, I see Dominic out there talking about when, but and then I saw a second question there about governance proposals. So we have a number of different squads or teams internally. We have a team that's fully dedicated to the DAO interface, and over last year, the 2 big product releases there entailed really the platform itself. So kind of the core UI and platform, but on top of that, we rolled out the Atlas Locker and the Polis Locker. And so going into this year, our priority on the DAO side is rolling out the core governance functionality. So this includes, the proposal system, the voting system, and then some method of discourse. So a forum where people can have conversations about, what they'd like to see enacted. So that's our number one priority within the DAO team, is getting the governance functionality online, activated, rolled out, and enabling people to leverage their Polis Locker, their Polis voting power, PvP, in this governance system. But that in and of itself is also incredibly complex. The idea of decentralized governance is extremely experimental. We're at the very front end of all of this, so we do want to be very, very careful with how we effectuate the rollout of decentralized governance across Star Atlas, because it's one of the areas that I think could be truly catastrophic to the long-term potential if we get it wrong. So baby steps here is what's important.
Yeah, I mean, DAOs DAOs and infighting, or like all politics. Like honestly, it's yeah, people love to like tear themselves apart from the from the inside. Dispute resolution is something that's very very hard to get right within any sort of DAO or any organization. I would say, like honestly. Stuff can go on so long. But yeah, that's all part of the innovation and the fun we have at the forefront of the technology. But there we are. We've got one last question here on Sage and whether there will be a mobile version to come.
Yeah, we are looking at mobile optimizing Sage, but I mean, first and foremost is getting out the browser-based version of this. So we're, we still haven't rolled out the initial feature on that, but yeah, looking at Sage support. Now, I think a mobile version of Sage is entirely feasible. I think a better user experience though would live on like a tablet, which is just a smaller version of your desktop anyway. But that's not to say that we won't look to optimize for Sage. And not that this is alpha in any way, and not really directly related to Sage, but one of the other things that we're heavily focused on this year consists of how do we improve the user journey. And that's really twofold. It's having multiple free-to-play entry points into Star Atlas. Of course, those are probably not associated with any type of real, genuine economic incentives or substantially decreased from what those paying players are exposed to. But ensuring that we can provide an inroad for people who just want to sample the game, and that consists of our Sage experience as well as in Unreal Engine. Again, giving people these like tastes of what Star Atlas can be, and if they're interested, they continue to engage, then they're likely to be more committed, buying assets or participating on a deeper level. So that's the free to play is one side of this. Totally lost my train of thought there though on the second one, so I'm gonna have to leave you guys hanging on that one.
Oh, that's all right. They can always jump into the socials. But yeah, I mean, like I mentioned in the intro, seeing everything that you guys have got and hearing it again now, certainly bullish. But you guys seem to had a good push up, literally, like funnily enough, a couple of weeks after the demo and the presentation at Lisbon, when the rest of the market was not looking too good. So yeah, I definitely missed a buy a bit earlier, but hopefully, well, actually, hopefully not. I was going to hopefully the market gives us another dip, but we've had enough. We've had enough. Thanks so much for coming on. Definitely good to hear about everything going on Star Atlas and your views on gaming in the metaverse, and a few conspiracies and dystopian bits chucked in. But yeah, to the audience and everyone watching, any questions, do jump into Star Atlas's Discord, go onto their website, and you can jump into any of their socials there. Is there any parting words from yourself?
Oh, I wish I had something inspirational to say here. What I will say is I'm still incredibly optimistic about the future. I've mentioned this before, but I've been in the space for a long time, and I've seen the cyclical nature of crypto and the hype cycles, and then the hate cycles where all of the infighting is going on, and everyone throwing accusations at one another, criticizing one another. And I'm looking forward to getting into a more favorable environment as we go through this year and go into 2024. But regardless of all of that, I am just very, very optimistic about the potential of gaming to be a major driver of adoption of crypto, of user growth, of new interest in blockchain and crypto going into the future. It's almost the fourth generation now in my mind of where we're at in the crypto technological age. And I think DeFi was a great use case, great example of how you could bring new people in and attract them. But we're finally emerging beyond the point where every single aspect of crypto is about trading, it's about finance, it's about making money. And we're moving into these are genuine applications that people want to interact with. And I think it's a very
Thanks,
exciting
Joel.
time to be in blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed we get past the pure speculative era or the pure yield farm era, which still counts as speculative. It's just a more clever way to be speculative, in my opinion. But there we go. But yeah, thanks so much for joining, and to the audience as well. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much, man.